I always have ideas for new videos, and I had this idea for a simplified English tenses video. You know, all the English tenses simplified in a way that you can actually remember. But I wasn't quite sure how to execute it. In this context, the word execute means to carry out, to complete something, to do something. I knew the idea for the video, but I just wasn't quite sure how to simplify the tenses. And then one day I was lying in bed asking myself, do I really need to wake up today? Do I really need to get up and do things? Or can I stay in bed like my dogs do and have absolutely no worries at all? And it came to me. Suddenly the idea came to me of how I would structure this video and how I could simplify the tenses. I think I finally have a way to describe and explain in the simplest of forms, but hopefully in a way that makes complete sense. So definitely let me know down below once you've watched this video if it did help, if it did simplify the tenses for you. And if you are completely new here, hi, my name is Catherine. I'm a business English teacher and I work with intermediate to advanced level students. Definitely subscribe and like this video if you want to improve your English in a natural and more confident way. Even when I was learning how to teach tenses, when I was learning how to become an English teacher, it was difficult for me to understand the difference. I could understand when and how we use them, but understanding the difference was something that isn't really explained to you. You're only explained the form and examples and how to create the sentence in that tense. But I'm often asked by students, but how do I know when to use that one? How do I know if I'm supposed to use present continuous or present perfect? But I think after 4 years of teaching English to non-native speakers, I finally found a way to make it easier and more understandable. And I will answer those questions as we go through this video, so definitely keep watching. And as there is no time like the present, let's get started. Now, if you are watching this video or have come across this video, I believe you already have a very good understanding of the simple tenses. That's kind of basic English. So you have the past, the present, and the future. I went, I go to, I will go. I did, I do, I will do. Simple. You just change the verb itself depending on whether you want to talk about the past, the present, or the future. That's fine, we've got that. So let's move on then to the continuous past, present, or future. Again, I believe this is quite simple and you probably already have an understanding of the continuous tenses. It is something that is continuing either in the past, in the present, or in the future. Will continue in the future. I was going, I am going, I will be going. I was doing, I am doing, I will be doing. The action is continuing, was continuing, or will be continuing. The only thing to note here is that present continuous is used much more in natural conversation than present simple. Unless someone asks me a specific question, I am much more likely to say I am writing a book, I am going to yoga, I am watching a TV show, instead of I write a book, I go to yoga, I watch a TV show. The present continuous is used much more often than the present simple in a conversation. The present simple is used more often with time frames to demonstrate how often or how little, how rarely you do something. I go to yoga once a week. I write a book once a year. I teach 5 times a day. But without the time frame added on, you're much more likely to use present continuous. I am teaching. I am going to. I am eating. Think about it. If I ask you, what are you doing? What are you eating? You would answer, I am eating sushi. Present continuous. So present simple is more to give direct answers or information, but present continuous is more used in natural, flowing conversation. Now the perfect tense. It starts to get a little more complicated here. But I actually noticed a pattern here. Maybe you've noticed it as well. Maybe it's very obvious to some of you, but I have not found any resources that have recognized or told students what I am about to tell you. As soon as the tense is a perfect tense, It needs to have a form of have, had, has. As soon as you add that form of have, it is no longer a simple tense. It becomes the perfect or perfect continuous. So examples, I went to the shop, past simple. I had been to the shop, past perfect. I am teaching a student, present simple. I have been teaching a student, present perfect. I will go for a run later, future simple. I will have finished my run by 7 p.m., future perfect. So you need that form of have for it to be a perfect tense. So what is the difference between a perfect tense and a simple tense? Well, in the simple tense, you are focusing on the action. I will read focuses on the action of reading. You are reading. Reading is what you are doing. But the perfect focuses on more than just the action. For example, if I say I will have read 3 books by the end of the month, my focus is not just on the reading or the action of reading, but it is on everything in that sentence. The amount of books, 3 of them, the time frame by the end of the month, the achievement of reading 3 books by that time frame, the context of the situation as well. Maybe my friend and I are competing over who can read the most books in the month. It is so much more than just an answer to a question. It is your achievements, your goals, the context of the conversation. Another example, I live in Sweden. Present simple. The focus is the fact you live, reside, have a place to stay in Sweden. I have lived in Sweden for 3 years. Present perfect. The focus is on the time frame, 3 years, the country, what you were doing there. It encourages the conversation to continue as the other person now has more context, more information, and can ask questions based on what you just said. Students often ask me, when should I use this tense? Or how do I know when to use this tense? Well, honestly, it's not something you think about using. You don't actively use it. In fact, most native English speakers have no idea what the perfect tense is. They couldn't tell you what the perfect tense is, but they use it all the time. But the reason it exists and how you use it is very simple. Think of the simple tense and simple continuous tense as answers to questions. I did this. I will do this. When did you do that? What will you do? Whereas the perfect tense is when you are telling a story, relaying information, engaging with someone, or want someone to know extra information, added information to what it is that you're telling them. In interviews, in fun conversations with friends, in personal introductions, meeting new people, when something funny happens on the bus and you tell your family about it later. All of those times will be perfect tenses because you don't tell a story like, I was on the bus. A man got on the bus. His dog started singing. I laughed that he was singing. You would say, today I was sitting on the bus when a man and his dog got on. I had been minding my own business when the dog suddenly started singing. I have never heard a dog sing before, so I was laughing a lot. Eventually, the entire bus was laughing too. In the second version of that story, I'm setting the scene, I'm giving additional information, I'm creating an atmosphere. Same thing in an interview. You don't say, I worked here 10 years, and then I worked here 5 years. You say, I have been doing this for this amount of years. I had been a chef when I first left university, but then I changed my career. Another way to tell, of course, is based on the question asked. If the question has a form of have in it, then you also need to answer with a form of have. Have you been to Italy? No, I have never been to Italy. How long have you lived in Sweden? I have lived in Sweden for 3 years now. So unless you are asked a specific question with the form have in it, think of the perfect tense as storytelling. A really common mistake with the perfect tense is people like to say what we did so far. Can you tell me what you've done so far? So far we did this and this. That is incorrect because that would be the past tense. So as you're being asked in the perfect tense, what have you done so far? From this starting point until now, what have you done? You would have to answer, I have done this so far. We've, contraction for we have, done this so far. From this point up until now, we have done this. So it's past perfect in this example. Now, our final lot of tenses are the perfect continuous. Can you believe we've gone through 9 tenses already? It doesn't feel like that many when you group them and break them down. So we've got 3 more to go, which would be the past perfect continuous, present perfect continuous, and future perfect continuous. Perfect continuous is exactly the same as the perfect tense in the fact it always needs to have a form of the word have. The only difference here is this is a continued action. It has not finished. It is continuing in your life. So at the moment that I'm telling you this information, it is still going on. So I had learnt English at school, past perfect. I had been learning English at school, past perfect continuous. I have taken a test to see what level of English I am, present perfect. I have been preparing for a test to see what level of English I am, present perfect continuous. I will have seen my results on Friday, future perfect. I will have been made aware of my results on Friday, future perfect continuous. The action is continuing, but why specify if the action needs to continue or not continue? Why not just stick with the perfect tense? Why do we need the perfect continuous? Well, think of our last perfect example, where I explained the perfect tense is used for storytelling. This is the same, but you would never really use the perfect continuous tense at the end of a sentence. You wouldn't finish the sentence with this. You would go on to say something else. So it's one action leading to another action. So for example, I will have been made aware of my results on Friday, and if they are positive, I will go out with my friends celebrating. If they are negative, well, I haven't planned for that yet. So notice I'm going on to say something else. If this happens, this is what I will do afterwards. Or an easier example, I have been preparing for a test to see what level of English I am. It's on Friday, so hopefully I do well. So you're going on to say something else about that piece of information. When we use the perfect continuous, we're not only explaining that the action is continuing, but also we are typically continuing on our sentence to give more information or tell something else, expand on what we want to say. If I just said he had been studying hard for the test, there's a feeling of, okay, but what happened? Why did he stop studying hard for the test? Why are you talking in the perfect continuous but not continuing your sentence? What happened? But if I said he had been studying hard for the test, but then he caught a cold and took a week off, that makes much more sense to me as the listener. He had been doing this, but then something happened. And you are continuing on to tell me what that something else was. So the perfect tense is a continued action in the past that is finished. I had studied at school. I continued to do this action in the past, but no longer. I had been studying. Perfect continuous. The action is continuing, not necessarily until now, but definitely as I'm telling you this, I had been doing something and something else happened. It's continuing to this something else point. If there are 2 things I want you to remember from today's video that I think will really help you with tenses, is the continuous is always an action that's continuing. It doesn't always have to be continuing right now, but as you're telling the story, it is continuing. So think about past continuous. It's not happening now. It happened in the past, but it was a continued action in the past. In the future as well. Future continuous is not happening now, but it is an action that will continue in the future. And the second point I want you to remember is that perfect tenses, either just the perfect or perfect continuous, always need to have a form of have. So had, has, have. And the perfect tenses are for telling stories, relaying information, providing context to the listening party. Personally, I find this very helpful when explaining to students and recognizing the different tenses. The best way to make sure you know all of your tenses is, of course, to put them into practice, do a lot of exercises, use real life examples. I will leave some links in the comments for exercises that I personally like to use, and just try to ask yourself questions as you're creating these answers. When would I use this? What information is the user taking when I'm saying this, when I'm telling them this? If you have questions or something I said was not clear, please let me know in the comments. I hope this was as clear and simple as I think it is. Maybe it's because I've been teaching this for such a long time that it seems clear and simple to me, but let me know if it has helped you, and if it has not, let me know your questions and I will answer them in the comments, no problem. So I will see you next time. Have a fantastic week. Goodbye.